Ms. Laurie, I meant.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Yordi.
Yes. Okay, the ground rules. Gathering information to produce the 2023 appropriation budget. No final decision will be this meeting. Public access is for viewing only. Participation will not be allowed. Fiscal officer.
Yes, ma'am.
Next.
All righty. Except for the current 22 year beginning balances, all revenues and expenses for the current year are through October 31 of 2022 for the purpose of this discussion. Ending balances for the current year are projections only, and I don't know how I can say that. They're projections only. Historically, we've come in and around the estimate area, but I never say never because we could end up spending all that we've appropriated. It's rare, but it could happen. All figures for the budget year 2023 are simply estimates for the purpose. Capital expenditures are defined as property acquisition, new building construction, major facility renovations, public works projects, and heavy rolling equipment. Generally, heavy rolling equipment is defined as expensive integral equipment, which is typically not used daily. These expenditures can no longer be automatically expensed or encumbered to the general fund. We'll have some discussion about that going forth, especially with the road budget. When adopting the budget resolution is approved, it is understood that the department heads have permission to purchase any and all items approved under the resolution. Any desired expenditure which were not approved under the adoption of the resolution must be handled through the fiscal officer's purchase orders procedures, and that must be signed off on by the administrators. And then certain dollar amounts will have to come to the board for approval. We have an overview ahead of us for budgetary concerns, our shrinking balances, especially as the carryovers are shrinking, potential increases from outside sources, what we have available to us, and then overall budget summary explanation. I believe that's all that I have at this point, but with your permission, there are a few items I would like to pipe in on a little later as you're discussing, but
Okay,
as you feel it's appropriate.
you're up. Presentation of estimated revenue, expenditures, spending ratios, and staffing levels for 2023.
Start with the revenue. Basically, nothing has really changed from last year. We got gasoline tax bringing in approximately 160,000. Bridge fund, the estimated at 346,000. Motor vehicle license tax fund is 17,500. Road district tax fund is 71,000. And the motor vehicle permissive tax is 109,500. For a grand total. Apologize, my total's not on here. What all that added up to?
It's 1.8.
Something.
Did you get the revised sheet where we added the?
We added the ARPA funds in so that you weren't upside down. You need to kind of.
Okay, well,
Didn't mean to throw you for a loop there, Paul.
that's all right.
Laura's gonna go ahead and run that, just.
Okay. Then there's also this year special, the ARPA funds that Ross Township has brought in, and you guys have committed to the roads at 825,000. And then what the Butler County Commissioners are sending our way is 274,000. So the total on the ARPA funds is 1,098,940. The total of my
Line.
guess it's the difference right here in this. That's the other sources. Yeah, so total, all the income together with the 5 accounts that we have and then the ARPA funds is 1,761,595. Any questions on the revenue?
Dramatically different than what you're thinking. Did anything major change on the revenue side?
The only thing is the ARPA.
I mean, for the better though, right?
Yeah.
For at least ARPA. Okay.
Everything else is almost identical. Move on to expenditures. Starting with the gasoline tax fund. You've written, never read these line for line, so if you guys, the ones that have an explanation out to the side means it's different than last year's. If you have any questions, if you look down through there. We did add something for tree removal in the right of way. Not sure if that was last year or just started that this year. It's $2,500 for, in case we have a tree that someone complained about is dead in the right of way. Of course, we made a little more in the fuel of the higher prices of gas, diesel. The road salt down towards the bottom, that's explained there at $68 a ton times our average of 750 tons. And the total expenditure for the gasoline tax is $159,376, and the income was $160, so right on that.
Is that salt purchase ODOT's pricing,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that what we do? Okay. And the PMS study, pavement management for 5,500. Coming into that same line of the tree removal, is that new this year?
That is something we do only once every 3 years.
Okay.
So it's that turn again. It's different than what was last year.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but okay.
It's like a PCR, right? We call it a PCR, pavement condition report.
Yeah, but we get an independent
Yep.
person to do it, so.
Just excited we do it.
Yeah. We'll move on to the road and bridge. Have most of the salary stuff coming out of there. I had to remove some things out of here to balance the account. So you'll see down the 3 of them to the right, say C2141. We've moved those expenses to that account. Or basically, this road and bridge is mainly for salary stuff. Yeah, so the income was 346. 345, 5 there out of that one. Any questions on that, Ken?
The training services, we've got employee training classes highlighted in red. There's a 0. Does that just mean that I think somewhere I saw that there was 500 in employee training.
Yeah.
Maybe that's under gas tax.
Yeah, it's under
it is.
2021.
Okay.
I don't know if it's in there twice. We have some of them that are in both accounts.
No, that's okay. I just was making sure you hadn't
And there's some
had to
things,
cut it, but it's just that it's somewhere else.
there's some things we jockey from
Yeah,
one account to the other year to year, depending on,
Okay.
I
so.
missed a note on the side on that.
It's okay. And then the plow truck at the bottom under large equipment purchases.
Yes. So that was what Julie was talking about, is that we need to have a discussion. I don't know if you wanted to do it now or at the end of this, but typically that machinery, large equipment would come out of there, but it's been explained to me in the past that a salt truck is a capital expense that comes from the general fund. I'm in the state of the general fund and everything also, but you guys understand the state of our plow truck.
It's actually,
So yeah, the new truck will be around $210,000.
Clearly doesn't have it.
I did not account for the expense.
It's currently all included in administration in the general.
okay, the whole thing. Because we can't take capital out of road and bridge or gas tax. Is that like the fund
We-
itself won't let us do
We
it?
could if we
If
had
we
it.
had it, okay.
But theoretically, what the way it was explained to me is that previously capital expenses came out of general fund. Decided that with police and fire having expanded levy amounts, they would assume their own.
Mhm.
Paul does not have a standalone, or the road department does not have a standalone levy. They have inside millage. Well, you know, and it's the permissives and
Right, where can it go and who has?
so for the purpose of discussion, if one is going to be purchased, it is not likely that the road department can shoulder it at this point.
The motor vehicle license tax fund. On the revenue, that one brings in 17.5, and we ended up moving, that was one of the things we moved, was the parts for repairs in-house, vehicle repair, $16,000, so I moved it to that account. That's the only expense in that account. In the road district tax fund, we also moved part of the OPERS for the employees there. And we have our crack seal contract coming out of that one at 12,000. And then the rest of these, there's small amounts. Those are the ones that on the other page said C 2141. We moved them here to balance both funds. So the road district was bringing in 71,000 and we only budgeted 27 out of that. The motor vehicle permissive tax, which brings in 109.5. We have put in 120,000 for the balance of our trace and paving contract, because what it adds up to is 119,000 more than the ARPA funds combined. So it has to come from somewhere. That's still an estimate county, so we don't know the exact, what the contract will cost exactly. That will fluctuate one way or the other. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, there's another note there then, the other paving contracts. $1,098,940 coming from the ARPA funds. And there's totals. Total expenses is $1,766,750. It all shakes out just like that. That's about $5,000 more than we bring in. It'll all depend on that contract, what it really comes back at. Then there's the balance sheet. And this is one that's in red, that there's carryover, excuse me, carryover in that account. Over the. Okay, here's the total I was looking for earlier. Yeah, so we're actually $36,000 to the good as far as income versus expenditure.
That only for this year, that doesn't include carryover from 22.
Right, yes, plus there's all the carryover that I
You've got.
don't know what that is.
We're estimating at this point about 650,000, give or take. And that's all the fun, that's 6 of his funds combined. So it's. And previously it was at like 822,000. It's fluctuated, it's the lowest it's ever been was like 570. So he's kept it in the same range.
We have it. Well, okay, I'll hold on to it. Keep going. Sorry.
So we doing the personnel and question or?
Are you ready for personnel?
I mean, there's a 5-year capital sheet here. For the new plow truck next year, and I don't foresee anything, knock on wood, so it would actually be 2028 to replace the 2008 salt truck we have. So I put it in 27 just because everything takes a year to do anything nowadays. I don't know if that'll change or not. When we get to that point, we can get another year out of it, we'll wait. The previous year there to the right. So on 2025, I was putting Smith Road in there because she just said about the balances, I wouldn't be able to pay for it without this ARPA fund. So it was put into capital just so you guys were aware of, hey, how are we gonna do this? So that is out now because that's being taken care of with ARPA. I believe that's all of it until we get the personnel.
Any mowers or anything that you're worried about
No,
making it for a while?
no. We just got a roadside mower last year. And then the arm mower is still in good shape. It should go for a long time yet. And our small mowers, we got one of those. We're in good shape there.
How about anything to the facility there?
I did want to put in possibly painting the building, not the brick part, but the ink part. I don't know, it's faded and it looks,
It's faded.
yeah, it's not really pink, but it's pretty close. But especially since we got the wash bay on the end of it now, it's a little different color. I don't know, we would do that ourselves, so it would just be the cost of materials, so I didn't put it in there. I don't see anything else going on in our facility.
You guys need pavement out front or anything like that? It's all in pretty good shape, hasn't it?
It's in decent shape and I think it's at least 5 years out before we need to do something. That's why I don't have anything in here. And especially now, since it's just our traffic, you guys aren't up there anymore, and the police aren't up there. It doesn't have to be as good as this out here. So,
Yeah, but
yeah, I mean, when it
nice.
comes.
There's 3 of you out there.
So the rest goes back to the employee cost, the salary.
I didn't know if that was executive session material or.
Is there anything you want to discuss before we move into that?
Or anything on here you wanted that you didn't ask for? Not saying you get it, just asking. Like, I know there's always that struggle as staff of like, here's what I'd really like to ask for, but here's what I have and I don't want to put it out there. I mean, just,
Speaking from the work that my department's done and the work that our board has provided me with the equipment over the last 12 years, I believe we have what we need to do the job safely and efficiently.
Levy now.
Would it be appropriate to talk about the need in the future for a levy at this point in the discussion before we go into executive session? It's just occurred to me that if all things stay relatively the same with the road department, they're chipping away at the carryover, which isn't even a year's worth of expenditures. And we do know that their expenditures tend to be large. As we'll discuss later with salaries and benefits, that seems to be a large portion of the budget. So I did just a really quick review of what runs when next in the grand scheme of things. We have a police renewal in 23. We have the second fire in 24. There's a break. And then the second fire runs in 26, which means that if we were ever going to consider a road levy or potentially even just a general operating levy that can be used however it needs to be used, we really have 2025 and 2027 looming. And that is putting us in a position where we don't have to run a levy against another levy. So these are just things to think about. Not really pushing for that exactly, but we do need to be thinking down the road. I mean, our healthcare costs and salaries are 2 of our largest expenditures across the board. Don't see that going away. Trying to maintain competitive wages. Not that the road department's currently seeking to expand or is currently seeking to replace. But with those things in mind, I just kind of wanted to put it out there for the board to consider. I don't think anybody wants to run a levy. But there may be a point in time in the next couple of years where it becomes a necessity. Road levies are typically a little more palatable than operating levies. And I think our community support the road department because they appreciate the services.
Right.
So just putting it out there. And for your general knowledge, with our current value base, 1 mil would generate approximately 238,000 annually for a good round number, just so you know what it.
The time comes.
Basically comes down to when we need to do another large paving job,
Mhm.
and we can't afford another large paving
Right.
job, so this ARPA funds have really saved and pushed that off for several years. I don't see us needing any large paving jobs within the next 5 years. So I think with the carryovers we have, I mean, I really don't want to project any farther than that, but I think for the next 3 to 5 years, we're okay with, we'll be able to pave some smaller streets or, you know, something that's, there's nothing out there that's terrible, except for the two we're getting done this coming year, so we're in pretty good shape road wise is what I'm trying to say. But more subdivisions, more roads and more traffic changes all that.
Couple bad winters changes a lot of that too, right?
Every winter, roads come out different. Very, very.
Or you wanna wait?
Well, I think we should talk about the levy and put it on the schedule. I think 2025 would be better sooner than later, because then we would be in a, where we need this levy to where in 25, we can start out at a reasonable amount where people wouldn't panic, so to say, with everything else going on. So I think if we looked at it in 25 and be in a position to go forward with it would be better than waiting until 28. You know, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think,
if we continue, if we get into a position where the carryover is being depleted because of the salary and healthcare costs, it's not allowing being able to kind of save for the next road project. And as we're seeing, road projects are now $1 million a pop. So that's $600,000 can be depleted pretty quickly. So potentially putting on a 1 mil levy to generate $250,000 annually, that helps maintain the costs needed to run the department without eating into the carryover.
right,
Yeah, currently paving 1 mile of road is $181,000. So if we did try to sell the levy as 250,000, that, you know, we would be able to pave a mile's worth of road every year. And not saying that we just do it, but you know,
Right, you
you would
have
be
the
able to
resources.
do that way. If we need to hold off and pave, you know, till the next year and save the money to where we can pave a bigger project, then we can do that.
Well, your pavement study shows what
Yeah.
needs to be done, right? I think that's the nice
Yeah.
part, because I think a lot of times people run levies and overpromise or underpromise on roads, but having that every 3 years is a good way to say, this is where we are, right? This is, gives you some time to build up some of those revenue. Like if I did the math right, there's a reason I'm not finance director anywhere. I mean, this is like a 2% carryover, right? I mean, a 2% carryover, just from a fiscal policy perspective, is
A little frightening.
a little terrifying, right? I mean, and not at all your fault, like, not to say you guys are not doing the darn best you can, but normal expenses and safety and having the right equipment and the things that, you know, you spend more to have better products in the end are eating up your budget. I mean, I think we would all like to save more than 2% of our personal budget, and it's not the same, but when you see communities will go anywhere from, you know, spend it all, we don't have any carryover, or we don't have any fiscal policy on that, to let's have 6 months to a year, right? There's no, my understanding is there's no best practice. But 2%, I think, is, that's hard. That doesn't give you a lot of room if something happens.
As you can see, this past year, equipment does break down no matter how
Oh, yeah.
new it is or whatever. spent 20,000 on that one truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have any thoughts?
I do not.
25? Actually, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go into executive session. Move for the adoption of motion 22-184 to retire to executive session to discuss the employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1. The time is 5:32. Need a second.
Second.
Roll call?
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Orty.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-185 to return from executive session to the scheduled special meeting. The time is 6:00. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Okay, meeting is closed, this portion of it. Okay. Then we'll wait for, can I hit it?
Yeah.
We'll move on to the presentation of the fire department of estimated value, expenditures, spending ratios, and staffing levels for 2023. Steve? You're up
Where do we begin?
at the beginning.
Page 1.
Revenue?
Yeah.
The revenue, guys, really has not changed since last year. General property tax that we generate from our levy is right at $1,070,000. That's pretty close to what we received last year, give or take.
It's a little conservatively low, but
The yearly village Millville fire contract is 63,220. They were successful in passing their levy, which I think it went like 70-30, so it was pretty overwhelming. And Jennifer, if you don't know, when we contracted with the village of Millville, when we first merged our departments together, Ross Township took the value of the equipment from Millville and prorated that over a certain amount of years. I think it was almost 10 years, I believe, until that was paid off. And then we were only operating off a 3 mil levy at that, when that expenditures spent out. And one of the things that we wanted to do was, Mrs. Irwin, who literally lives across the fence from Station 102, we wanted her to pay the same amount as the Hobners right across the street that lived in Ross Township. And they were receptive to that. And when we put our additional 2.5 mil levy on a few years back, that forced Millville's hand in increasing their levy, and it pretty much passed overwhelming as well. So whatever levies that we have in Ross Township, the Village of Millville pays the same, and that equates out to 63,220. And they've been pretty good about paying. A lot of times they pay ahead of time before that's due. The homestead, rollback homestead fees is rated 87,000. Again, that was taken off from what we generated last year. The refunds and governmental reimbursement, Julie, you're going to really have to explain that one, where that funds come from.
It's a mishmash of things that come in that are not non-operating. I'd have to pull a ledger. It's just a myriad of little things.
Okay. The funds from obsolete property sales, I got it estimated at 8,000. That's a crapshoot. Hopefully one of these days we'll get our new medic unit in, which you'll see over there in the red at the encumbered amount. Hopefully we'll get that at the beginning of 2023. That's a crapshoot. I don't know what the heck I'm going to get out of that life squad, especially the shape mechanically it is in right now. If you remember a while back, we had it looked at, and it was going to cost $7,200 just to get it fixed, and I was kind of weighing whether it was worth fixing or not. So the total of that is $1,232,220. You'll see the encumbrances is $190,287 for a total fire levy $1,041,932.23. The EMS fund, the contract for emergency medical services, I have estimated that for the last 5 years to bring in 150,000, and I think we're probably pretty close to that right
We're going
now.
to exceed that by the end of this month is my guess.
I would rather undershoot it than exceed it. And that's going to fluctuate because the runs that I submit in December of this year, we probably won't see till February, March. So it takes time for that to filter in.
Are we soft billing on that?
Yes. Yeah. The only.
I
And we
figured
do-
everyone kind of soft bills on it,
We
but
do. So anybody that's in our EMS software, there's a flag in there, resident, non-resident. So resident, they will not see an insurance bill. Their insurance company will.
Mhm.
Anybody that lives outside of the township, their insurance will get a bill, and whatever their insurance don't pay,
sure, you go after them.
then we go after them, but we only do it for 3 months.
And then what do we do?
It gets wrote off.
Okay.
We looked into the city of Hamilton, for example, is they hard bill everybody. And then if they don't pay that bill within 3 months, they turn over to the Attorney General for restitution. And we looked into that, and it wouldn't be worth our time going after.
We don't write off that much.
You'd be surprised for what we actually charge
Mhm.
for EMS calls and the mileage and everything. Instead of the 150 we would get, we'd probably get $500,000.
Mhm.
It's just all depends on what the insurance companies want to pay and what Medicare pays.
Mhm.
So, and there's no getting around Medicare or Medicaid on what they'll pay. It's just a flat fee.
Mhm.
And then they're starting to turn into, is this recorded?
Yes.
Okay. Very much. They're getting to be real sticklers on EMS reports. So the big thing right now is coming out that if Medicare receives an EMS report that isn't signed by that patient,
They're not gonna pay.
So they're really cracking down on it. So
Just wonder, we're starting to use the AG for income tax collection. Because they put their collection fee on top. You know, if you forced it to go to the AG, then you get to pay
Yeah.
collection fee. So there was really no skin off the city sending it through, but I didn't know if there was enough
We looked into it.
right off at 3 months. It wasn't worth it.
Not be worth our while.
Yeah.
And MediCount, our EMS billing company has helped us out on that, and they recommended not doing it. Just based on the volume of EMS calls we got.
But compared to some of the townships around us who don't use a company like MediCount, we do collect
A lot more.
a significant amount.
It's a lot of
more.
paperwork.
Oh, it is.
It is.
You know, and we tried a few years ago to bill for motor vehicle crashes.
Mhm.
And the insurance companies caught on, and they literally made a bunch of red tape, even try to get from that. So it was a time and effort thing. So with all that said, with total EMS revenue, total fire, our total fire department revenue is $1,091,932.23. Again, that encumbered amount, that's been on the books for a couple of years. PO's been written. And again, hopefully that won't make our balances look so bad.
And it won't be as bad because the insurance claims on the encumbered amount on your HRA, it will come down. Right now, we're estimating 34,000, and I know we just got, it's probably down to 30,000 right now. So, I mean, it continues to dwindle.
Okay. It's gonna be hard for me to read, guys.
I know.
We'll need a bigger font.
I mean, you guys want me to go line item through line item?
No.
Would like me to explain anything? I've got a couple things over in the right-hand column.
Mhm.
As far as repairs and maintenance for all fire department vehicles, that is taken out of the EMS fund. That's why it says C Fund 2281. Down below, you'll see EMS supplies, turnout gear, cleaning supplies. I've got that little asterisk out there for turnout gear. And what we've tried to do is we rotate that. So every year we try to purchase at least 4 to 5 sets of turnout gear because those things expire at 10 years. I don't really personally agree with all that. But it puts us in a big liability if I put somebody in turnout gear longer than 10 years. And if we've had unfortunate accident, that would put the township at liability. The 3,500, that's the striping and the lettering of the pneumatic unit. Again, if it comes in. Cost for maintaining or removal of fire stations, exterior, interior. I put $5,000 down, and it'll probably be cheaper than that, but I want to converse and consult with Paul, the parking lot at Station 101. That's probably going to be in need of resealing. So total expenditures for the fire department on the fire side, the fire levy is $1,428,093.62. Going backwards. As far as the EMS levy fund, there on the right-hand column, expense for any purchase EMS or fire equipment needs. I've got a list of 15,000, and that is for new fire hose. A couple of months back, I told the board that we tested fire hose. And as usual, the 5-inch supply lines that we get the most expensive, that fire hose does not last very long. So we'll have to take a look on how many sections that failed during our testing and replace that. I've got 2 iPad upgrades with mounts. In the fall, we purchased, I think, 3 iPads to replace the ones in the medic units. And we held off for the ones I think in the engines in my vehicle will need to be replaced. We also have a couple of computers at Station 102 that will need upgrades as well. But as far as big ticket items, and we can talk about it when we get back into the capital needs, there's really not a whole lot of big ticket items that is on our list. the next few years. Any questions on the fire levy EMS side?
Hmm.
Now for the fund balances, I thought I was doing really good until Julie messed me up. But initially, when I put the budget in, we were 141,000 in the red, which kind of concerned me, but it didn't concern me. I would be really confident that if it stayed at 141, that we would be able to come in with a balanced budget. I've always budgeted high for our expenditures, and it seems like we've always carried over. And that will tell, you go and look at the fund balances for the fire department for ending year 2022. I believe it's right at about 1.1 million. I'm pretty proud of that. We did have some help through the CARES Act, but through conservative spending, we've been really fortunate in grants. And based on the 5-year budget projection that I did a few years back, we're still ahead of the game. But we knew we were going to go into deficit the latter years that we went through our fire levy. Questions on that? You want to talk about employee costs now, or go into executive session, or I can talk about capital improvement stuff?
Let's do capital improvements.
Again, in 2023, there's the old Memphis Life Squad again. I'm actually probably going to call him probably the first of the month to just get an update on where we're at on it. Again, the previous years, the potential for the 800 megahertz radios, that's still on our radar. I did apply for an AFG grant, and there's approximately 3 more rounds left to go in funding for that. But with Hurricane Ian and the last storm, this is excuses that all their personnel that deal with grants are down working the national disasters. But there is three more rounds. They haven't told us no yet, so there's still possibly a chance. I do have on the schedule to have our current radios that we're using to have that encryption key put in the radios. And in the case that we did not get the grant for the radios, those radios will continue to work past 2025. It's just a problem of getting parts and batteries for them. I did order batteries back in June for those radios, and we still haven't got them. And they were estimating sometime in December, all because of the little micro computer chip in the batteries. Excuse me, the replacement of the 1993 tanker. Jen, you haven't heard me talk about this, but that truck really should have been replaced 4 or 5 years ago. And I can't justify spending the money on replacing that truck because all it does is haul water.
Mm-hmm.
It's still old. It drives like it's old.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as that truck is full and is sitting in our bay, we get credit from ISO for total water. So we got lucky and had a big windfall revenue. I would say replace it, but right now I would not recommend replacing that truck. We've got 3 AEDs that are due for replacement soon. Again, that could be a potential grant item. We were lucky enough about 10 years ago to get a grant to purchase the ones we're currently using. And then last but not least, we got the replacement of the 2005 Ford Excursion. That's new for the list. That thing is just about seeing its last leg. So it's going to be really need to be looked at in the next year or so.
What would you replace it with since there's no excursions? They haven't been, would you go with like your size expedition?
I would probably, Keith, recommend maybe a pickup truck.
Oh, yeah.
Just for a mere fact, that we've got that trailer that we haul with Gator. We've got that fire safety trailer. And I would probably recommend going with a heavy duty pickup truck with a cab.
Oh, okay.
Again, that's on the radar.
Do you use the same style radios that the police uses? I'm only asking because at the last township meeting, Matt Franke said that, basically the radios are going to continue to use, and while they don't have any extras or parts, you can still allegedly get parts for them. That was the good news portion of it. And I didn't know if those radios he's talking about are the same radios that you all are using.
Yes.
So he is optimistic at this point that we'll still be able to get them repaired. And who knows for how long, but
In my opinion on it, Julie, if I turn the radio on and if I hear people talking and if I push the button, if somebody answers me,
that's,
to me, they're operable. Now, the newer radios with all the software updates, they're great. They're like in Bluetooth between my radio and the SCBA, which is really a good function. And I said this back when they announced that our radios were going to be dead in a couple of years. And they might, and that was the key word, they might not work. And it's like playing Russian roulette with $250,000, and I'm not going to do that. And I think it's proved that we were right. So again, it's something that should be on the township's radar in the next few years.
So I'm just thinking on budget requests, capital requests, and one of the things I noticed between Paul and yours was number one, I don't really understand the spreadsheet because what I thought was happening is not really what's happening. But both of you guys have years where there's nothing necessarily highlighted, and I would just suggest you fill in those blanks because you can always adjust, right? But to know in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, what you would ideally want, I think can be really helpful for levy discussions, for budgeting discussions, for trustees just knowing where your head is and what you're thinking, hey, 4 or 5 years.
In the next 5 years, Jen, is in that list right there.
Well, it's all in 2 years though. I'm seeing it all under 22 and 23.
I can put them in any year.
And I'm not seeing I'm not seeing anything in 24, 25 or 26. So if you give this to me, I think, okay, in 23, he's going to be looking for those potentially. There might be some shifting, but we don't have anything stretching out further. And all I'm saying is, I think it would be a good idea to think about for you and for Paul, what could you need just to get it out there?
I got you.
Things could change,
Sure.
but I wouldn't sit here and take it as a request. I would take it as just thinking through that so that when we start those levy discussions or we think about that, you've got the ability then as staff to say, hey, trustees, you've seen this 3, 4, 5 times. We're coming up on it now. I bumped this 93 tanker back 5 times. This is finally the year it happens. And I've got this situation that happened. I'm going to slide this one in and I'm going to slide that one out. And I think you're doing it in your head. It just might be great to have a little more runway
Sure. I
to
can
see
do.
where you're thinking.
But as far as capital expenditure, Jen, and as far as big ticket items, those are the big ticket items that I see potentially in the next 5 years.
You got anything for your buildings? Any planning for what's going to happen?
Well,
to
really,
other
and
buildings?
honestly, like Station 1, there's probably a list of projects that we could do. But we go back to this building because when this building was originally bought, that was the potential of turning this into a fire, police, and administration building. So I've kind of held back, of putting a whole lot of money into Station 101 if this building's still on the radar on the trustees' mind, if that was what you guys plan to do in the next 3 or 4 years.
And I think that is actually a really good segue into one of the questions I had coming on board was just what's the plan for this building? And I know there's a plan in the sense of it could go to 2 stories, it could do this, it could do that, but I'm not sure how well vetted those ideas were. Just walking around the back and seeing the spaghetti of electrical and HVAC and all things can be untangled, right? But what is the viability of this building versus
And you're not going to
Station
know that.
1? And you don't know that till you start to invest.
Till you get an architect to actually come in.
Correct.
And take a look at it, but.
Yeah, so I hear you, not wanting to throw police departments in the same position, right?
Mhm.
We don't want to throw money out there and have not been useful.
Yeah.
So maybe you're improvements on Station One actually kind of need to be driven by some planning for this building.
Absolutely.
And then you would know a little bit better, hey, that's 10 years out, that's 15 years out, or that's 3 months out,
Yeah.
right?
You know, and one of the things, I mean, we piecemealed a lot of stuff down at Station One, I mean, which it's livable, but, you know, one of the things that the guys really like to see is, you know, redo the bathrooms and the shower rooms down there. I mean, they're inadequate, but, I mean, they work.
They are functionally.
They're functionally, yeah. But, you know, for me conservatively, if to spend $40,000 hypothetically on a remodel job when, you know, the building only has a certain life expectancy to it. So we've held back on a lot of things because of that.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I think it's on us to figure out a little bit of what does this building have the potential to become? Because I think that's dictating some decisions from two department heads.
Oh, yeah. And as far as this location for, you know, police, fire and admin, I think it's a great concept, especially if across the street ever goes. It would be the focal point, the center point of that whole development. So,
Just making sure there's space.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you.
you guys, I left my lights on. I'm going to turn them off.
Go into executive session.
You want to go into executive session?
Okay. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-186 to retire to executive session to discuss the employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1. The time is about 6:28. Need a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes.
God.
Okay, I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-186. Nope. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-187 to return from executive session to the scheduled special meeting. The time is 7:00. I need a second.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Any business to come before the board? Like to move for the adoption of motion 22-187 to adjourn the meeting. I need a second.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Next meeting is December 1st, 2022 at 6 PM here at this building. The next budget meeting is December 5th, 2022 at 5 PM. Thanks for coming.